Hello, welcome to my channel, Workwife here. And today's topic, and I hope I keep it short today, is talking about communication styles and how that can play into why you might perceive a work environment as toxic or a coworker or boss as toxic, but they're actually not. But before I jump in, again, I am the Workwife. My name is Rachel, and I am a workplace coach specializing in toxic work environments or difficult situations, dealing with difficult people at work. I have nearly 20 years experience in corporate jobs, big, small, and in between. And I'd love to assist you with whatever you might be going through right now. So feel free to, if you like this content, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and I'd love it if you subscribe to my channel. And in any case, let's jump in. So in some cases, I realized today that you might perceive someone or your environment as toxic simply because your attachment style or communication style is different from whoever you're interacting with. So I touched on anxious attachment style, I think, in a previous video, and there are, avoidant and anxious and secure right in between. And I think I emphasized that anxious attachment people tend to hyper-focus on interpersonal relationships, which there's nothing wrong with that, but sometimes it becomes imbalanced where you value other people's opinions more than the opinion towards yourself, or you are putting other people on a pedestal rather than focusing on your own needs and goals. And on the opposite end, you have avoidant, where they're hyper-focused on themselves and doing their own thing, and they're fiercely autonomous. Nothing wrong with that, also, depending on the career choice that's made. But imbalance happens when you are so focused on yourself that you simply can't deal with your coworkers, or you don't want to participate in anything. You just want to do your own thing. And then anytime anyone seeks to make some sort of connection with you or work with you on a project, you want nothing to do with it because you perceive that they're imposing upon your personal space and whatever you're trying to do for yourself. And oftentimes you are hypercritical of others, whereas an anxious attached person is hypercritical of themselves. So that's a very broad generalization of the two. And then, as I said, there's secure in the middle, where you have a relatively balanced view towards interpersonal relationships, and you're also taking that time for yourself. So how that plays into communication styles. The actual one team building exercise that was worth it to me years ago was, I had to go on this retreat, and someone came in and started talking about low context communication and high context communication, and gave a very interesting example that stayed with me. So here's the example. You have a manager, and something's happened and you need time off for whatever reason. It could, some personal reason that you need to communicate to your manager. If you are a high context person, which most likely aligns with being anxiously attached, but I have no proof of this, just putting it out there, but just seems to be a correlation there. If you're a high context person, you're going to go to your manager in your one-on-one, and you're going to go on and on about the backstory, what happened to this person, your relative, so whatever it is. It's going to be a lot of detail. You're going to be emotive. You're going to talk about, and here's what happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. And ultimately, your goal is to get time off. But in a sense, you've almost lost sight of that because the story in itself is important to you to communicate. If you have a low context manager, he or she is not going to give a shit about any of that. And I'm not saying that in a negative way, that they're, they don't have sympathy or empathy for your situation. Low context people are cut to the chase. And that's why I say that probably low context people probably align with being avoidant, because they're not hyper valuing the connection with the other person. They're more dialed into the facts. What's the bottom line? Bottom line it for me. I don't care about anything else. What do you need? And ultimately, it's that time off. But that low context manager is hearing all this and it's going rah, 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 like the Charlie Brown cartoon, and they want none of it. So they almost cut the person off and says, "Wait, just take what you need. Just take the time that you need and keep me posted." Great, right? No, not for the high context person, because I've seen this happen, and I've actually been a mediator in these types of situations. The high context person is offended. The high context person is like, they don't want to hear my story. He doesn't care. She doesn't care. How unfeeling. How toxic. There's actually nothing toxic about it. Now, hopefully, side note, the low context manager has framed his or her response in a sympathetic manner. So they're not cutting them and saying, "I don't give a crap about what you're saying. Get out of my office." No, they're saying, "Oh, I appreciate you telling me. Take the time you need. Just keep me posted if you need more time. I hope everything works out." That is a sympathetic frame for a low context person who really doesn't need to hear all that detail. They don't want to be involved in all the emotion of the story. Again, not necessarily because they're an unfeeling person, but they literally don't need it. Their mind is already, okay, what's your goal here? You need time off? Yes. And also, it's assumed that there's trust between the two of them, and the employee is not taking advantage, and this is the 900th time that they've asked, for time off. So in this particular situation, there's nothing toxic about this, even though the high context person might think and then go off and complain, this boss doesn't care, he's unfeeling, he's cold. So that's something to keep in mind, and it's very important, and something that I learned as a supervisor when I had someone come to me about something personal that I cared about, but interestingly enough, I can't stand micromanagers. I cannot stand them, and usually they are high context managers, meaning that they want the detail, they want to give you detail, they want to go on and on about their situation, likening it to yours or whatever. I think in my context, as I've gotten more mature, I've gone from being high context, being younger, into low context, getting older, because I need to get stuff done. And if I go to my manager and say, blah, 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 here's the deal, what do you say? And I usually have a low context manager as well. It's like, done, I'm out of there. If I'm low context going to a high context manager, they're going, oh, what happened? And I may not necessarily want to go into that. I'd just be like, well, I'm having a personal issue with my family, and I need time off, or I'm going on vacation. Oh, where are you going? Oh, maybe I don't want to tell you. No, but then maybe that high context manager sees me as being avoidant and standoffish or snobby. And then the relationship gets affected that way, and that manager thinks I'm toxic as an employee. So these are just some things to keep in mind when you are quick to think someone is being toxic towards you, and they may not necessarily be doing so. Because, look, ultimately, we're humans. We have our own backgrounds, backstories, experiences, beliefs, thoughts, whatever the case might be. And those things in our lives create a filter over our eyes that are the glasses behind the glasses. So everything you experience goes through this filter that you already have based on your thoughts and beliefs and assumptions. So oftentimes we think that just because we're a certain way, we assume others are a certain way. If I am, a person who values deep connections and body language, and I want to tell you everything about what's going on, and, I'm assuming that you're the same way, not in an arrogant way, like everybody's got to be like me, but it's very difficult to step away from your own filter and say, okay, well, maybe this person doesn't have this experience, or maybe this person doesn't speak the way I do or communicate the way I do. You almost have to take some space in between, or try to create space between you and your own filter. Observe yourself instead of identifying with your experiences so much that I don't get it. Why is this person being so unfeeling? I don't understand. How could they not want to connect with me on this level? You may not have your experiences, may not have your background. That's kind of ironic too, because anxious attached often gravitate towards avoidant and vice versa, because they have those spaces in their own personalities that the other person fills. right? So an anxious person tends to have an avoidant relationship to themselves because they put themselves last, and an avoidant person tends to have an anxious relationship to themselves because they're so fiercely autonomous, and they have, and so it mixes in that way. So it's very interesting how that works out. But anyway, something to keep in mind, just, I still think of that high context, low context example to this day. I feel it's made me a better manager in the times that I've had teams, been team leaders, to understand how other people behave. And I've successfully mediated those situations where two different people describe to me the same conversation in a completely different manner and are, in a sense, complaining about each other. And then I say, well, I talk to them individually and I say, well, this person tends to be this way, and this is how they communicate and perceive things. And then I tell that to the other person as well. And then I help them understand that you're coming at the same conversation from completely different communication styles or ways of looking at the world and people. So you need to understand where they were coming from and maybe why they perceived the conversation the way that they did. And then they come back together and go, oh, I get it. And that's why I'm a workplace coach, because I'm good at it. Anywho, so that's today's video. I hope I kept it short. And yes, I am again in my car because it's a brisk morning and I'm on my way to the gym. So happy Saturday. Feel free to leave a comment. Do you have a low context or high context style? Let me know. Feel free to send me a message on Instagram at theworkwife, or email me at theworkwifellc@gmail.com with your story. I'd be happy to help. And until next time, stay centered, stay cool, and I'll be back with the next video. Bye.